Every sports fan has an opinion. Well, these are ours. Welcome to Brock and Pep's Unsportsmanlike Convo.
Ready? Right.
And here are your hosts, Brock Fleming and Pep Cariotti.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is February 16th. Again, 7 p.m. It's always 7 p.m. on a snow day here in Ottawa. And joining me in the Quebec side of things, making it diverse, is my co-host, Pep Cariotti. P-Dog, what are you wearing right now? What's the jersey?
It's my Trailer Park Boys. No, it's Sunnyvale, and it's Bubbles. He was the assistant captain on their road hockey team. So this is one of my favorite jerseys. One of my favorite shows.
Trailer Park Boys. You're a big Park Boys fan, eh?
Big fan. Very Canadian. So does it come any more Canadian than East Coast and hockey and Trailer Park Boys and drinking with the boys?
Drinking with the boys. I was never a big fan. I'm not gonna lie. Like I never really got into Trailer Park Boys myself, but that doesn't mean it's not Canadian.
Very Canadian, like a culture. It's got its own following, And I think a lot like it's like you either really love them or you just sort of meh,
Yeah, it's true. And it's again, there's a lot of shows where if I just watched it and like paid attention and a few in a row, you kind of start getting the characters. And
for sure,
I haven't done that. It hasn't been on my to-do list yet. And although physique wise, I probably look like what's that? There's a guy that walks around no shirt on.
Randy.
All right. Randy.
Old Randy. Randy Bobandy.
Okay. So we got quite the show. You put it together and you got a lot of real good stuff in there. There's a few things we want to go through initially. I don't know if you're excited or not, but I know that Ontario and the Outaouais region at least have changed their colors from the COVID standpoint. So things are going to start to loosen up a little bit finally. I know Jackson starts hockey on the weekend. I know restaurants are starting to open. I think gyms started to open. Is your gym opening anytime soon?
No. Soon, that's tough. It depends on how fast, because where I'm located is in a hospital. It depends how fast the staff can be vaccinated. Once they're vaccinated, I think we're good to go. We're unique. We're not quite like the public gyms. If somebody gets COVID in our facility, then it's literally a healthcare worker that has to quarantine for 14 days and everybody that's in the surrounding area. So they can short staff the hospital by doing so. So it's a little tricky. I'm still being very patient and optimistic. I think the vaccine rollout, hopefully we can pick up the pace here in Canada. We're doing well as a city, but as a country, we're really behind on the vaccinations. We got to get things going here. I know there's a delay now with I guess it was a winter storm and one of the facilities that was supposed to ship the stuff to us. So now there's going to be another week delay before we get them. Like we got to get this vaccine going before the variants take over. So fingers crossed. I'm trying to be optimistic. So we'll see what happens.
Well, in the meantime, we'll open slowly. Again, hopefully people take that into consideration and say, let's not all go from 0 to 100 right away. Mm-hmm. But if we can be up at 50, 60 and start to have some sense of regularity and normalcy, but still being cautious, hopefully we can kind of use this as the slow ramp up as opposed to another spike and bringing it back down. So we all got to do our part to be diligent and safe with this virus still in play. This weekend was a pretty nice weekend, and I'm going to give a shout out to a friend of ours, Ken Tasker, who, if you want some cool hockey stories, go back to our podcast, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, go take a look at it and look up for Ken Tasker's episode. A lot of great hockey stories. Ken Tasker was a legendary fighter throughout the ranks of minor hockey all the way up to AHL. So right before the NHL. But anyway, he's got a great place just on the outskirts of Ottawa and has made a nice home rink, and he's invited us out there a couple times for a little bit of a skate. So I've taken Jackson, and actually Savina came this weekend as well. But we had a little best of 7, little Stanley Cup series. So the teams were made up, and this was the group of lads that were there. And as you can see, Jackie Boy's got the Stanley Cup. So Ken's got a little replica Stanley Cup there, and he's holding it up in the air. And behind him is his old man in goalie equipment who got lit up. not lit up, but I lost. And so kudos to Jackson, our fact checker Curtis, who's in the back as well as another adult, and Ken, who's another adult. So Jackson was the only kid. Anyway, we went to 7 games. It was intense, but it was a blast. It was a beautiful day on Saturday. And again, I thank Ken for having us out there, but it gives you that desire for normalcy. Like, you just want to have those get-togethers, and you want to have more people around, and you want to have the big outdoor rink games that are down the street. But again, we're trying to be cautious. So it was literally our family and his, and then his friend who's in part of his bubble too. So again, trying to be as cautious as possible, but still have some fun. And it was a blast.
Well, that's it, eh? I mean, it's like that's pretty innocent. Like, I drove by the canal on it would have been Sunday around 2:00. It was really nice out. There must have been 10,000 people out there. Like,
Really,
you know, so, you know, to say that those people were being responsible. I mean, look, who am I to judge? I was on the canal, but I chose a quieter time. There was no way that the city was going to be able to regulate that. But, you know, people are obviously itching to get out and get some fresh air. So as long as everybody, I think, hopefully was responsible on the ice, I think everything went well. But, you know, we're all clamoring for a little bit of normal again. You know, I certainly am. So that was cool. I saw the pictures on Facebook. I'm like, that's pretty cool stuff. So
it was fun. You put a lot of effort into it.
For sure.
Also, our producer Mike is off sick today. Hopefully you feel better, Mikey. Obviously this show will not run as smooth as it normally does.
No, we're going to struggle. We're going to struggle through it.
I wanted to shout out to a few friends of ours too, Keith Hiscox and a few other guys that you might know. I think the McNamees were involved and stuff as well. Anyway, they're owners of the Central Beer House and also the Crazy Horse in Canada. And over the last week, the Central Beer House actually decided that they had to close their doors. They couldn't survive any longer due to this COVID stuff. They were in one of those niche things where they were just a little bit too big to even with rent subsidies and stuff to really survive. And unfortunately, you know, it's succumbed to the COVID reality and had to close their doors. So, you know, my thoughts go out to Keith and those guys. So they're there every single day. Like, they're not owners that are just trying to rake in bar money. Like, they're behind the bar, they're flipping bottles and cleaning tables and whatever they got to do to help out and to make that place go. So I know that was a big hit to those guys. So
yeah,
you know,
sorry to hear that.
It's sad. Yeah.
Drama Bar, by the way, a friend of mine named Tony House, legendary basketball mind in the city of Ottawa. Him and his wife, I believe his wife mainly, own Drama Bar, which is I think it's in that Canadaplex there where the movie theater is. And they're reopening Thursday. So just give them local business, just giving them a plug. Really good food. I ate there once and it was really tasty. So yeah.
Again, support local. This is not over by any means. And even if people start opening and stuff like that, these restaurants, guys and gals, these establishments need our assistance to recoup some of their losses. So I know all their energies to Crazy Horse. That's another place. They're still surviving and they're going to be opening again, but it's supporting people, you know, and local businesses and stuff too. So again, do what you can. It's an excuse to eat great food too, if that's what it is. But do it. The other thing too, you know, the other news that just came out was the passing of Vincent Jackson. I'm familiar with Vincent Jackson, who was a receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the San Diego Chargers for years.
Curious to know what happened there.
38 years old. So really young. I'm curious to see what the story is there. I know there was a missing persons thing filed and it found that he was okay. And that was canceled. But then a few days later, he was found dead. So, yeah, I'm curious to see what that is. But again, it's unfortunate. I hope it has nothing to do with, you know, any side effects from football, that kind of stuff. A receiver position is a little bit different. But I don't know. Every time I hear a football player passing that are young, I always think that there's something to do with, you know, mental issues that could and more likely have been caused by years and years of football and hitting each other. And I think that because of the fear that, you know, I don't want to have long-term effects from stuff. When I think of my playing days and concussions I've had and dingers I've had and vision loss I've had, and you think, where's that going to affect me later on in life? So, when it's a football player for at that age and stuff, I don't know, it always hits home kind of for me.
Well, it's like he's 38, so I don't think he's been out of the league for very long. We'd have to look at his concussion history to see if he's even was ever diagnosed with one. I think that those types of things, hopefully, I mean, they come on a little later in life. So hopefully, with that, knowing that hopefully that's just not the case. Where you're, worst case scenario. I think what you're implying perhaps is, you never know, right? Maybe suicide or chronic pain, and it'll lead a person to do crazy things. So actually, it's a
great segue.
Great, yeah, well, that's brilliant. You just lobbed that one up to me. I want to shout out Dave Barbier. He's a high school teacher here in Ottawa at Sir Robert Borden, and he's had me come in. A little standing O for Mr. Barbier there.
Been too long for Barb.
He's had me come in. I actually spoke to two of his senior classes a couple weeks ago about depression, and he's having me come back this week and talk to a couple more classes later this week. It's not always easy to talk about. I mean, it's not hard because it's just telling my stories. There's nothing to memorize, there's not, and certainly for the kids, I'm not reading from a textbook, so there's nothing for them to jot down, but it's emotionally draining, when you tell your story and you talk about things that happen in my life that not everybody knows about. It's, it takes a couple days to recover from that, but, I'm glad to do it. I like it when I'm actually doing it. It feels good, and hopefully I help somebody. But I want to ask you, actually, Brock, about depression. They say in sports, athletes suffer two deaths. There's your actual physical death when you end your life, and then there's the death when your career ends. There's a sense of just like a loss of identity.
100%.
Did you when you knew that football was pretty much done from a player standpoint? Did you experience anything where you just get major league down and maybe perhaps you just felt the overwhelming sadness, or did you experience any of those symptoms of depression?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this one time early on in our podcast. You had a lot of questions for me, and it wasn't stuff you'd given me beforehand. So I remember after really thinking, a lot of those questions kind of hit home, and some of the feelings I had were stuff that I never really processed properly. But one of the big things when you talk identity loss is like, I've always been the biggest guy in my circle of friends on whatever team it is. I mean, all the way up to the pros, I was always the biggest. And starting at such a young age, that was my identity. It was Brock, the football player. Like, yeah, I played a bunch of other sports or whatever, but even if, the success I had in baseball and whatever was, he's the football player who's playing baseball very well or whatever. That was just kind of the identity that I related with and that kind of stuck with me. So when football takes out of the equation and you're Brock, the guy, the football player, who are you? You know what I mean? Like, what is my identity at that point? So it definitely, from specific depression signs and symptoms, can I put a finger on it 100%? No. I mean, was I, eating more and, being lazy? And I still remember, times once I was back at home of missing out on things with my friends, like hanging out with them, or they would go on trips, or they would go out, do things that, to me at the time, I would be like, no, like that's not worth my time. It's not important enough. It's not, it didn't fulfill the loss I had of being at that, the level that I stopped playing at. I kind of wanted some more of that. And then when I look back at it, once I kind of got through it and I started to realize it really happened when I had kids, where, my identity and the importance of who I am, as a football player didn't hold a candle to who I wanted to be and who I was as a father. And so that really gave me that identity at that point. But being able to look back on those years, I accept it and acknowledge how much I missed out on because, whatever justification I was giving at the time, but it was depression. Essentially, I didn't want to go and hang out with them. I didn't want to go do the things they were doing. And because of that, I missed out on a lot. So anyway, things like that. Yeah. Like I can 100% relate to it. I got a friend now who, I think I talked to you a little bit about them. They were a family living with us. They were friends of Angie's friends. And her husband is a friend of mine who I used to train with and play ball with. And he's, trying to find a job here in Ottawa. But right now he's a firefighter in Calgary. And in order to move here and be with his family for what they ultimately want, he's got to give up that career. And I think back to the transition from being a sport. So he played football. So he was a guy who went through football, finished around the same level I did, and then had to give that up. So you kind of go from that transition to say, who am I? And then he becomes a firefighter. And now he's Mike the firefighter. And now he's got to give that up to be back in Ottawa. And I'm like, that's that's twice that there's identity defining sort of careers at that point that you got to give up, or something happens that you can't continue to do it. So I felt for him. I feel for him for that transition, that it's going to be just like when you stop playing football and you acknowledge that I can't be a football player anymore. And he's got to choose to not be a firefighter anymore for the betterment of his family. But it's going to be something that I will be conscious of, and I'll do my best to sort of help him with that transition. And I feel like I can relate to him a bit more than some of the other people, but I know what's coming for him. So, that concerns me a little bit.
That's interesting. And, those are excellent points. And the last time I told my story to there was a grade 12 class afterwards, one of the questions was, when did you know you were sick? Which was a great question. It kind of put me on the spot. I'm like, oh, when did I know I was sick? Well, in 2014, I kind of felt there was a day where I really felt poor. And, Mikey, that's a nice compliment. And thanks, Mikey. That's good. But I started thinking back even further, and I certainly, now that if I go back to like 2000, 2001, where I had opportunities to play basketball, I had to make a choice after high school, basketball or football. I couldn't afford to do both because my mom couldn't rub two quarters together, and my brother and sisters were moving on in their lives, so I had to make some choices, right? And I really thought I could play basketball at the university level, and I still think I could have. I think I didn't get a fair shot, but that was a whole other thing that I don't think I ever really got over completely. But when I injured my back, I think it's really when I realized, okay, now my career is really done. If there's ever any hope of playing high level anything, it's over. So that was really difficult. An injury, I remember 2007, 2008 was really a tough year. So anyway, I look forward to talking to those guys, and I want to thank Mr. Barbier for having me back. I have been approached by other teachers, and as much as I love to talk about it, it's really difficult to do on back-to-back days. I need a couple days to sort of let the emotions calm down again, and then I'm willing to do it. It's also probably not the greatest story for young kids. So if you're a teacher from grade 9 and up, I might be beneficial. It's a little heavy for younger kids. So, but we can certainly chat. If anybody wants me to come in and have a chat, then I'm more than glad to do it. So
yeah, and you're a great speaker, and I think that you relate to the kids really well and stuff too. So you would tailor it as much as you can to the age group that you want to do. We got a Facebook user who made a comment. So now you get to come play golf with me to help improve your mental health. I'm not sure if golf improves my mental health or not, but looking forward to the upcoming season. And then they followed up with, you got to bring Pep with us sometime. So without Mike, it's Josh Dedam. So thank you, Curtis. Mike is out sick. Mike usually gives us the who wrote what if their names weren't showing up on Facebook. So that was Josh Dedam, an old buddy of yours and schoolmate, and he's the guy that's responsible for I guess the fact that I don't hit a ball into the woods every single time either has been greatly appreciated, to say the least. And I am definitely looking forward to the golf season. Great segue to, if anybody's a listener who happens to have hookups for memberships at courses anywhere in the vicinity of my house in Ottawa, by all means, reach out. I would love to become a regular somewhere and whatever, but I don't make golf membership money at this point, which would be nice. But
and Josh Dedam, just FYI, bud, I'm putting together I'll call it whatever you want, docu-series, I don't know, like a 4-episode 20 to 30 minutes on the 1990 to 1994 Darcy McGee GGs, and you were part of, I think, 2 of those teams, one for sure that I remember. So tune in, buddy. It's going to be on my YouTube channel, but maybe Brock and I can post little clips on here in the upcoming weeks as I get through with it. I think it'll be an interesting kind of a Hoosiers story. pretty cool stuff. We have a lot of good memories. I'm sure, Josh, you have good memories too of those times. So anyways,
there'll be little clips. If it's Darcy McGee stuff, it'll be little clips on this show. All right, let's pay some bills here real quick.
Yes, sir.
All right, if those who are listening are interested in buying a house, leasing a house, well, I guess not leasing because you don't need mortgages for that. Buying a house, a rental property, if you're fixing up, if you're looking to refinance because you're like, oh my God, these rates are so good right now, I got to take advantage of this before they go back up. Reach out to our man, Eric Fabian at the OttawaMortgageShop.com, 613-899-5131. Give Eric a call. Make sure that you tell him that Brock and Pep sent you. And I promise you'll get 6-star service. You'll get the best rates in town. He's got 40 different lenders to choose from. So the competition, the competitive nature will be there. You get the best rates. And we got a little prize pack for you or whatever. If you end up getting a mortgage with them, we've worked out a deal. We can get a little UC prize pack for you, hoodie, hat, that kind of stuff. Anyway, OttawaMortgageShop.com, Eric Fabian, give him a call.
Awesome.
Right, what's next?
Awesome. Well, it's time to talk a little puck. And, I was looking at the overall standings, and there are some teams. I think there's one team, might be the Devils. They've only played 9 games. Most of the league is averaging about 15 games. So there must have been a COVID situation in New Jersey, I think. But very interesting. So far, so good. Fingers crossed in terms of the COVID situation in the NHL. Don't think there have been too many cancellations as of yet, but that was definitely going to be a risky proposition for every league that went ahead and tried. I think college basketball has taken a bit of a kicking with COVID, but NHL has hung tough. The Toronto Maple Leafs, now just solely based on points, the Toronto Maple Leafs are number 1 in the league. Does that surprise you?
No, they were expected to be right up there. I'm surprised they lose to the Sens 2 days in a row, but otherwise, it's yes, Mike. Ottawa Mortgage Shop open for people buying again. I'm going to say yes. I figured he could probably do it. I may be speaking out, but call him and he'll let you know. But no, I'm surprised. Somebody asked me, said, "Oh, can the Sens win 2 in a row against Toronto?" I said, "No, like they're not built to win 2 in a row. It's just not that kind of thing. The Leafs are going to be the ones that get outworked in game 1. Then they say, okay, well, we better come back and put some effort into our game in game 2. And that didn't happen. Well, not that it didn't happen. They did, but the Sens made a comeback, right, to bring it and win in overtime. So, what turned into everybody's talking about the layup, the easy 2 points. I think somebody who's an avid listener brought that up last week in terms of the Sens an easy 2 points are not an easy 2 points, especially, like I said, when it comes to Montreal and Toronto. Those are rivalry games. Those are ones that, even new Sens, young Sens, whatever, get up for. And so it is what it is. You're going to get a fight every night, which is great to see because that's what people will determine the Ottawa Senators season on. And especially in the Ottawa area, the banter back and forth through fans and how they see the team is going to be, am I able to talk smack to my Montreal Canadiens buddy or my Toronto Maple Leafs buddy? If I'm just the whipping boy for both of those, then the season, if they won every other game, the season would be a disappointment. But if they're competitive and can win some of those games against those two, then the Sens fan, the average Sens fan, is going to be happy because of what they're able to give and take from their buddies who are not Sens fans, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's good win for the Sens. I mean, they were down 5-1. You could tell Toronto took their foot off the gas. If I'm a Toronto fan, I'm not terribly concerned. I mean, it's one loss. You were up 5-1. You have to look at the positives. You were up 5-1. You gave up a penalty, a double minor. They didn't score on the double minor. They ended up scoring right after, so it ended up being 5-4. And then, at 5-4, anything can happen with 14 minutes left. But at the end of the day, you're still number 1. The Sens are pesky, but they were listless the first few minutes of the game. So, there was some talk today about the epic fail and this and that. Come on. Their Leafs are built for the playoffs.
No, an epic fail is being up. Was it 4 goals in the third period against Boston in a game 7?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
right? Was it Ray Crofton nets? I can't even remember who was in nets, but I mean that's an epic fail. This is game number 18 on the agenda. They'll be fine, and they are built for the playoffs. And Joe Thornton's a nice fit. Some of the veteran guys they picked up are really fitting in nicely. Zach Bogosian, really nice fit. I mean, there's a lot to be happy for. If I'm the Leafs, I'm definitely worried about goaltending.
They're always worried about goaltending.
They're always worried about goaltending. Freddie Andersen, like, to be a goaltender, you got to be kind of like a special cat. You have to have like a little bit of an edge, a personality. Maybe the biggest critique of Carey Price is that he always looks kind of too chill. When he gives up the softies, he looks chill. When he makes an awesome save, he has the same demeanor. I mean, I think it works. I think it works for his benefit. But some of the best goalies in the NHL in history have had that little edge to them, like Dominic Hasek and Marty Brodeur. Those guys. I mean, I don't know. Are you concerned? Do you think Freddie Andersen, Eddie Belfour, exactly? Do you think Freddie Andersen's the guy? Do you think they're going to roll with him?
Yeah, I think they roll with him. Yeah. Do I think he's the guy? I don't know. He's a very good goalie. Like,
very big goalie. He's huge.
Very big goalie. I mean, I've proven I'm bigger than he is, and my 8-year-old son was scoring on me during our game. So there's room there for sure. But again, he's a good goalie. Is he going to steal a bunch of games and Carey Price you? No, I don't see that happening. Or when it does happen, it's not in a 1-0 game. Usually you'll have standout games, but it'll be like a 4-3 where the Leafs get outshot by a bunch, and he plays very well, but he's not going to, I don't know. He's not the guy for me that's going to win the game for you, but he's good enough for what the Leafs have. The Leafs have a ton of offensive power too. They've always had it for the last little while. And, they kind of live and die by if they're putting the puck in the net. If they're doing that, they're going to be fine. If their offense struggles, they're not built to win tight games and to really clamp down on defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, when you look at the two measurables for goalies in today's NHL, it's position and rebound. So, does he position himself well? I think he's always in the right position. I don't think he moves laterally as good as some of the other goalies in the league. And does he handle rebounds? He's pretty good. I don't see too many rebounds off Andersen. So, I mean, we'll see. It's early, but it's not, right? It's a 56-game season, and the Leafs are 18 games in now. So, you're just a quarter of the way through, and you kind of have a good feel for what your team is. But in terms of the top teams in the NHL, here are the top 10 teams by points. It's the Leafs and the Bruins. No shock there. Golden Knights. I've been impressed with Marc-Andre Fleury. All the trade talk in the offseason, and he is playing his lights out. I'm so happy for him, and I kind of like the Golden Knights. I didn't like those chrome nuggets they wore on their heads the other day. Did you see those helmets?
I did. I also saw myself in those helmets.
The gold chrome?
Yeah, that's
that was Notre Dame, right? That was just wild stuff.
Trying to turn my light down. I think it's making my face red.
Were you in a tanning salon?
Apparently, I could use it, but the tea makes my face red. Anyway, yeah, Fleury, I love Fleury. Like, he's one of my favorite goalies. Again, ever since he did that thing in World Juniors, I felt so bad for him, and he came back with a vengeance in the NHL and has played awesome. His demeanor and his personality is just appealing and mesmerizing to a point. Like, he just loves life, and he's playing awesome. And when he got traded and he kind of thought he was down and out, and goes to Vegas and goes right back to the Stanley Cup and is playing off his mind is phenomenal. I love the kid.
Yeah, happy for him. Tampa Bay is right behind them, and the Florida Panthers off to a good start. I think they're 9-2 or something like that. So, I mean, will this continue? I don't know, but they're a well-coached team. They're young. Barkov might be the best unknown star in the NHL. He's really good. So they're in the mix. I mean, I'm not talking about the Eastern Conference here. I'm talking about over the NHL overall. Carolina sitting right behind them. Then we got the Habs, Blues, Chicago Blackhawks, and Jets, and those guys round out the top 10. The worst teams in NHL right now, from the last to the fourth last, are the Sens, are dead last, followed by the Sabres, Devils, and Red Wings. Which leads me to my thank you, Seb. They were all. Leads me to my question. Again, we talked about this on the last podcast about the Sens being in the North Division. you got a few gimmies when they were during a regular schedule. They're going to see the Sabres 3 times. They're going to see the Devils 3 times. They're going to see the Red Wings 3 times. Right there, there's a potential for 6-7 wins just by playing those teams. So the fact that the Sens, and you had said, well, hey, listen, they're playing good competition. It's going to only help the youth. They're playing the best. Like the North Division stacked. Every Canadian team made the playoffs last year except the Sens. So I think the way the setup is this year really did hurt the Sens in terms of competition. I thought they were going to make or at least push for a playoff. So they're not
hurting competition. The competition is better. So what did it hurt? It didn't hurt the competition. It hurt what? Their egos, their development. But the competition is there.
It's losing takes its toll. I mean, now they're going. This would be the 4th season now that they're going to have a losing season since that 2016 almost Stanley Cup run. It
Which
starts to wear
time either.
No, for sure. But they've slowly jettisoned all their stars from that team, and they finished dead last 2 years. I mean, that's a long time for how long 3 years can be, right? 3 years is a long time for a fan base to want a winner. So I think on the flip side, the benefit for the Sens is there's no fans in the building, because if they were losing like this with fans, I don't know what we'd be seeing in terms of attendance. What do you think about that?
I don't know. That's time will tell. I'm not sure. People are going to be craving whatever they can get. You know what I mean? Once this is kind of over.
Sure.
So I think from that standpoint, I don't know if it's necessarily going to be how competitive the team is. I think this might be the only time that, let's say a fan base in Ottawa is just like, I don't care what the product is at this point. I just need to get out of my house. I need to go to a game. I need to feel normal. And lately that's the Sens losing. So, hey, they lose, but I had a good time. I'm at the game. I had a couple beers. I'm sitting with 20,000 fans. Like, that's what people want. They don't care what the product is at this point. So I think this is it's a little bit different this go around than it would be for normal years.
So you think COVID might actually help the Sens when this is over?
I think it helps the Sens. I think
the Sens specifically.
The Sens specifically, I would think so. Like, I would be more apt to
because they were drawing nobody, right? They were drawing nobody.
I want to do something. And if you say you can go to a Sens game and you can go and the crowd will be there and whatever, I'm going to a Sens game.
Hey.
I'll say, yeah, I'll go do it. But I'm not going to go with any expectations, whatever, but I'm going to have a great time because I've been craving this for so long.
It couldn't get any worse prior to COVID. Nobody was going to the games. I mean, there was a 1:00 game that I attended. It was them against Columbus, which had a little bit of a side story with Duclair and some players switching teams. And it was a 1:00 on a Saturday, and I'm like, this is going to be awesome. We better get there early. It might be packed. There's nobody there. This was again pre-COVID. I think it was just before COVID, as a matter of fact. But you might be onto something. This might actually help with the city clamoring for things to do and the sports teams. Maybe they'll take the Sens. They won't take the Sens for granted as much. This could help Melnyk too. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But I got a question for you, Brock. Do you like how players force their hand in trades in any sport, really? But speaking of essentially just hockey, and with the Pierre-Luc Dubois and Laine saying, I want to get a trade. Dubois basically, I think, he kind of, there was a couple of shifts in one of the games where he wasn't working so hard, so Torts had benched him for a whole period. What's your take on players and their control over their destiny when it comes to things like that?
It's a tougher question. Like, I think of university sports. I think of professional sports. I think of, no matter what you're doing, you got to love what you do. Okay. So guys that are playing hockey, the ones that are only doing it for money, they don't actually like doing it. They don't have success usually. Like, I can't think of anybody who's been really good to say, you know what, I hated playing hockey. I only did it because of the paycheck and whatever. It just doesn't happen. You have to love your craft, and that's what their thing is. And the life around a sports team, the relationships you have and the chemistry you have with the people around you are paramount. So, I look back at my university thing, and I wish I had the nuts at the time to say, I'm not getting along with my position coach. This is not fun for me. And if it was just football related, there's no way I would have stayed at Colgate. But I had school, I had other friends and stuff like that. Was fine. But I tell kids now, say, look, you need to get along with your coaches. That's essentially who dictates playing time, how you're gonna your shift time in the NHL, how your off ice life is going to be like, and all that kind of stuff. And if you're not getting along with them, it doesn't matter how much money you're being paid. It's better for you and the organizations if you part ways. They have a chance to get somebody in return that wants to be there. They get rid of somebody who's maybe getting paid a lot of money, and if he's worth it, eventually his play is going to be affected by the fact that he doesn't want to be there. So you're going to lose money on that anyway. I think it's about time that athletes spoke up, and if the situation is not right for them in terms of mental health, we talk about mental health a lot today. Mentally, am I in a good spot to be here? Do I like the guys I'm playing with? Do I like the coaches? Am I playing for the coaches? Are we like a team? And if I don't feel like I'm part of that team, it doesn't matter how much money I'm making and say, well, suck it up. It's just not going to last. So you address those issues, and guys are more confident addressing those issues now, and they can get to a situation that they actually like. Like, look at Galchenyuk. Within a week, he's like, man, I don't like this one. I don't like this one. He's been traded like 15 times in the last 48 hours. That's exaggerated, and he's not making those choices. But what I'm saying is that athletes now have the voice and the confidence to speak up, know that, especially if they're good players, they're not just going to get cut and released and say, I'm never going to play. I'm not afraid that I'm never going to play in the NHL again. I'm telling you, this isn't the right fit. If you're going to keep that coach or keep this the way it's set, it doesn't fit for me. So get somebody in return, get me somewhere where I can use my skill sets properly for another team and fit in properly. And I think that that's a great thing for the athletes to be able to do.
I got bad news for you, buddy. You just agreed with Draymond Green.
That's disappointing to me.
I don't know. You don't like him.
I just agreed or disagreed?
You disagreed. Oh, no, sorry. You agreed with him. Sorry. Did I say disagree?
I said disagree. So I'm like, yeah.
Bad. No, you agree. He came out today and he actually made a great point. He said today, with regards to Andre Drummond, who the Cavs basically said we're not playing you until we trade you, and he's like, well, I kind of want to play. They said, well, no, if you can agree to this, we're going to work on a deal, get you out of town, and they just said, just wear street clothes, sit on the bench, try to be a good teammate. So he's doing what he can, yet the league and other media outlets and other players crucify a guy like Harden for saying, I want out of here. So, he said, and he actually defended James Harden, said, look, why, this guy got just crucified in the media for wanting out. Was he playing his hardest the last couple of games in Houston? Well, probably not. But when you're not motivated, it's hard to really get up. I know you're a pro and you're getting paid all this money, but you're a professional still, but you're also a human being. So he made a great point. I was saying, like, it's a double standard. So if Andre Drummond said, well, I'm not playing until you trade me, the media would have just crucified him. But the team does it, and it's fine. How's it fine? It's a double standard. So I think the players should have a say in where they play. I do believe in dynasties and some loyalty, and you don't see that as much in sports anymore. But the players should take some of that power back. So I mean, good for them.
If they're part of a dynasty. Okay, if you're part of a dynasty, you're part of a great situation, which means the coaches are there, the players like the coaches, all that kind of stuff. They're there for a reason. That core is there. That's why they're a dynasty. Okay. If there's turmoil and guys not getting along and it's not a good fit and mental health is not there on either side, players or coaches, then that dynasty is not there. That's just the way it is. Like, in order to be a champion at the professional level, everything's got to be working together.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, it's out. Now, hockey, basketball, baseball, those sports all have guaranteed contracts. So you sign a guy like Harden for $100 billion, whatever it was, and he doesn't want to play there. You want to cut him? What do? You're still on the hook for $100 billion. That money is owed to him. So as an organization, if a player does not want to be there, I would prefer he tells me that and say, you know what, I'm going to trade Harden for whatever it is they got back for it, cash and draft picks and whatever. Say we got something back versus having a Harden who comes back next year, instead of 30 pounds overweight, he's 70 pounds overweight. And, he's just shooting threes between bags of chips on the sidelines and whatever. Like, this is the guy that you've paid this much money for. You're guaranteed to pay him. It's different than like football. Football, guys can ask that, but they can always just cut you.
Yeah.
And they won't have to owe you any money.
That's
so,
it.
Especially in those 3 sports, you're on the hook for those contracts no matter what. So it's in your best interest to have a happy player, have a good dynamic, and have the player want to stay and play for you and have that drive. Or better to know it sooner and say, you know what, his stock is still high. He's a good player. I can get some stuff in return. So the Jets and Columbus trade is probably as good as it gets in terms of those 2 organizations, and saying, you know what, we have 2 guys. We each have a guy that doesn't want to be here. They would prefer to be at the other spot. Hey, let's swap them and whatever. And they get something in return. I think that's great. Mike just told me I needed a chip break.
Do you like the blood rule? It drives me nuts. The blood rule, where if there's blood, it's a double minor, and if there's no blood, it's a minor. I've seen headshots that deserve a game misconduct. Then I've seen like basically a high stick, which is inadvertent in some cases, draw a little bit of blood from the nose, and it's a double minor. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. What do you think of that rule?
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it should be indicative one way or the other. I find that it doesn't take a lot of blood. And when you do see that, you see guys down on the ground or whatever. I'd love to hear Ken or somebody talk about it, but I feel like there may be, you sort of help yourself show a little bit of blood, like they're really looking for it. And like, oh, it's right in here. And maybe they bit their mouth. You know what I mean? Like, well, that's the 2 minutes, especially in the playoffs. A 4-minute versus a 2-minute is huge. Who knows? They're not, just biting the inside of their lip to get some sort of blood. And the ref's like, oh yeah, I see red. And that's automatically an extra 2 minutes. I don't know. I don't like it.
I'd like to see a couple things happen with regards to penalties. I'd like to see them have a power play for the full 2 minutes. If you score early, you stay on the power play for the full 2 minutes. I'd like to see that. I'd love to see that. If that's how it used to be, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, and that's what my father-in-law Paul talks about all the time. He was like Detroit and the Canadians back in the day. He's like, they couldn't. Yeah. They had teams that weren't that great 5-on-5, but it used to be score as many goals as you can in those 2 minutes. And he's like, a power play, they were unstoppable. And he's like, that's all it took. 1 or 2 power plays, and then they were smoking people. Should the NHL lose a trapezoid behind the net? Has it served its purpose to protect goalies, though, those 2 corner trapezoids or whatever they are? I don't know. That's it takes away one skill from a goalie. Like, if you're really good at playing the puck, that was a skill that came in handy where you get right to the corner. Now you see goalies just being able to handle it behind the net or whatever. I'd like to see them remove it before the no-touch icing. Yes. So maybe with an icing thing, if there's 2 guys racing for it and a goalie's going out, that increases the collision. Now that there's no touch icing, maybe they can go out and play it if they want to, and not be afraid of as big a collision. I'm not sure. I haven't thought about it enough to actually give you an answer. If they want more scoring, having the goalie as far out away from the net as possible is probably going to help. But anyway, that's just my perspective. Parity. The last topic on hockey here. In terms of the NHL, Seb LaMarche said the trapezoid needs to be flipped. Not sure what that means. Can you be more specific? Guy, so maybe it's maybe you can only play it in the corners if you're the goalie. Yeah. Oh, interesting. I see. Okay, if that's what he meant, that'd be cool. Directly behind the net should be the no play zone. Okay. Corner should be good to go. The rule was put in to speed up the game, and it has not worked. I think the New York Jets are doing that, Seb. They're not allowed to play in the end zone. He's a Jets fan too. Yikes. Yeah, I know. Ouch. Parity in the NHL versus other sports. For me, obviously we saw a team like Ottawa be able to come back. I'm not here to poop on the New York Jets, but we look at a really bad NFL team playing a really good NFL team. Their likelihood of winning is like slim to none, and Slim went home. So what's it like when you were comparing parity in the NHL versus other sports? Is it good or bad for the league? In terms of having more parity or less parity? More parity. Obviously, the worst NHL team could beat the best NHL team on any given night. Is that good for the league? Does it separate stars? Like, give people go out to see their. I mean, it's nice to see your team beat up on somebody they should beat up on. It's like watching those old wrestling videos from the 80s, and you had those jobber fights. You knew you were going to see the superstar win.
But it was still exciting anyways. I don't know. I
think
too much parity.
I think it's good for the league. I think, again, like you said, if there wasn't as much parity, then there's not as much appeal to go to those games that should be blowouts and that generally are blowouts. And, because of that, then the value of those games goes down, the revenue for those games go down, all that kind of stuff. So from a league perspective, having parity in the league is good for the league.
Oh, and let's not kid ourselves. Every league would love parity. Every league would love to have every team on, like, a competitive game every week, especially in the NFL. All right, Brock, let's pay a sponsor before we move on to hoops.
All right. So you remember when Mike says sometimes you throw it out there last second and he's actually paying attention to the okay, so here we go. I'm going to do it again, I guess, right? Unless you want to do it.
It's all yours, pal.
Hey, OttawaMortgageShop.com. OttawaMortgageShop.com. If you're in the market to buy your first house, the Ottawa market is hot. If you're looking to get a rental property because people are renting, or if you want to refinance, you got a mortgage, you're like, ooh, we're stuck at 5% or whatever from a few years back. Let's take advantage of these mortgage rates that are as low as like 1.5 or even lower. It's crazy what these mortgage rates are right now. You got to give Eric Fabian a call, 613-899-5131. Give Eric a call, OttawaMortgageShop.com. Make sure you tell him the Brock and Pep sent you, and you'll be guaranteed 6-star service and the best rates in town.
All right. OttawaMortgageShop.com, everybody. Okay, Brock, this came across my path this morning. LeBron James said in 2011 when the NBA locked out, he almost tried out for the Cowboys and Seahawks, and he thinks he would have made it. A, would he have made it? And B, what position do you think he'd have played?
Yeah, I think he would have made it. Are we talking? I mean, he's LeBron James. At the time he's doing it, he's a basketball superstar, top whatever, depends on what list you're looking at, top 2, top 5, whatever, basketball players of all time. He's an athletic freak for his size, his build, his athleticism is as good as anybody I've seen. I've seen his highlight tape, his high school football highlight tape. He's got some ball skills. We know that. We see him on the court doing it. He's got great hands. I think he's a tight end probably, but he's a load. Like, he could play wide out. He could be like a DK Metcalf kind of guy, where he's got that kind of speed. I'd be curious to see what his 40 is, but he's jacked. And again, his ups are second to none. His hands are great. I think the Cowboys would have been Jerry Jones would have been all over LeBron James if he had tried out, and he would be him, and he'd have Amari Cooper on the other side.
Yeah, I think for sure, and we look at the best tight ends in the NFL in the last 20 years, Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, all guys who had pretty good college careers. So good, in fact, that they probably would have been drafted in the NBA. So, yeah, that's a tight end would have been a perfect spot. But like you say, Brock, getting low and blocking. I mean, we've seen LeBron basically get pushed with a finger and he falls over, but that's generally flopping. Otherwise, he's a freight train. The guy is huge.
That's the league made that out of him. That's the league refereeing and how they call fouls. They're responsible for the floppers of today, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've always said that unless the league's going to enforce it, players are always going to push the envelope and take advantage of it. But you also have to be accountable as well. You have to be held accountable for your behavior. And the flopping, to his credit, he's actually flopped a lot less over the years. In fact, since his second go around with Cleveland, I think he's done a great job of not flopping. He still works the refs pretty good, but that's okay. The refs know him. I think he's got a good relationship with him. He sees these guys like 10 times a year. So he does a good job of that. There was a flop last week in Memphis that was just atrocious that I think
the one you got warned for.
It's awful. I was watching it live and I was like, that is just, I mean, you just can't do it. But like you said, if the league isn't going to call it, he's working the refs to his advantage. He got 2 free throws out of it. So, hey, I'm a
The other
I'm a
thing he would
huge
have been is maybe a rush end, like a Julius Peppers kind of style.
yeah. Another again, but Pepper's another great college basketball player. So yeah, for sure. We don't see too many basketball, football, dual sport guys just because of I think football is sort of a special, although Deion Sanders, but baseball was a secondary sport. You don't just see too many of those guys anymore. But
They're both hard on your knees and stuff too, right? Mike
is there
asked if there a penalty for flopping in the NBA.
you can get fined, but in game you don't. There's no technical foul for flopping. It's a non-reviewable play. But the league always reviews these calls, and you get a pretty hefty fine. Now, I think if you're a chronic flopper, you can get suspended for a few games. Good question, Mike. Let's talk a little Raptors. So they lost to the worst team in the NBA a couple nights ago, Minnesota Timberwolves. Again, defense is their perimeter defense, Brock. I mean, I think you could take one of those guys to the hoop. It's
a shot at me or a shot at them.
It's a shot at you're the size of a center, and you could take one of their guards to the hoop. Let's just put it that way. It's pretty weak, and then on top of that, they have no rim protection, nobody to block. Like Ibaka would clean up a lot of the messes that were made by the small forwards. But yeah, I think when I think about the Toronto Raptors, I think ball movement, good defense, clean the boards, protect the rim, and they have none of that this year. It's all one-on-one, and their record shows it. They're 12-15, and not a great record. They're still sitting in the middle of the pack in the East. Too much one-on-one. Van Vliet, Siakam, too much one-on-one stuff. Have you watched any of the Raps this year? I know you've been busy just with college football, really occupied a lot of your time. Have you had a chance to watch any of the Raps this year?
Well, just since Super Bowl's been over, I watched a couple of those. I kind of wanted to see how their big guys were doing because they got that. Who are the two? They got Boucher and the big white guy.
Yeah, Baines is awful. Coming off a career year in Phoenix, he hasn't played up to. Maybe it's just the speed of the Raptors play. He's just unable to do it. Yeah, Slim Duck Boucher, he's averaging close to 20 points a game coming off the bench. He's nice. The problem is he's 180 pounds or whatever. Like he's
got to beef up, and I just don't know if he doesn't look like a guy that beefs up too easily. So
yeah, I don't think he can. I mean, what's he going to beef up to? $190? So yeah, it's a situation that they need to address. And there's some trade rumors for Andre Drummond, and Andre Drummond plays in Cleveland. Not a lot of conversation about Cleveland or him. People know him from his days in Detroit. The guy lost 20 pounds in the offseason. I follow him on Facebook. His workouts are awesome. He's got a great trainer. He's averaging 20 and 20 this year. I mean, the guy had a game where he scored 30 points and grabbed 20 boards. I think he did it twice this year already. He's an old school guy. He doesn't have a perimeter game. But, there's talk about the Raptors. Oh, maybe he's not the right fit. Well, you need rim protection. What is the right fit? And people are enamored with Norm Powell. We can't include Norm Powell in a trade. He's too valuable. He's Norm Powell. I mean, the guy was like a second round pick. Is he a good player? Yeah, he's a nice player. Can he shoot the three? Yeah, he shoots the three pretty well. He's super athletic. But, oftentimes he turns the ball over. He's a little bit out of control. And he's Norm Powell. If you're going to nix a trade because you're in dire need for Norm Powell, you got bigger problems.
It's those fans are talking and making decisions with their heart versus their head.
Yes,
in terms of the
playoff Powell.
So we're coming right off of a championship season fairly recently. Norm Powell had a huge part in that, and a lot of clutch things that people remember fresh in their mind of that. But on an overall perspective, he's a guy that if we can get some high returns, then he's got to be in the conversation.
It's got to be in the conversation.
But it's tough to do from a fan's perspective. It's tough to separate your head from your heart in terms of players.
That's ultimately going to be the deal with Lowry. Anthony Davis out 3 weeks with a strained calf and Achilles pain, which is the two usually tie in together. That's not good. But we've seen some of the greats go down with Achilles tears. Kobe was one of them, and his career was never the same when he came back. Durant just more recently, now he's out with a calf strain. Dominique Wilkins tore his Achilles. We're starting to see injuries take away the explosiveness of some of these guys. Blake Griffin, Brock, remember how awesome he was coming out of college?
Out of Oklahoma.
I saw a clip of the top 20 dunks from 2010 to now, and he was in like 6 of them. I don't think he's dunked the ball once since being traded to Detroit, and he's max money. This guy is getting paid huge bucks. He's a shell of the guy he was before. Is there a way that the Pistons can recoup money? There's just no way to do this, right? When a contract is signed, it's ironclad, right?
Yeah, unless the player agrees to restructure their agreement, in order to, maybe they're making a push or something. They ask him to, basically, the club can ask him to take less money. I don't think he does, but they can ask him and restructure it some way, or say, you know what, like, yeah, we owe you 80 mil, but let's Bobby Bonilla your trade and say you get $1 million for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Well, we can save some cap room and get a couple other players in here to make a push, but otherwise it's there.
Well, he's actually they've just pulled the Andre Drummond with him and told him that you're not playing until we trade you. So again, another situation where max money, he's getting paid like an insane amount of money, the same amount of money that like DeMar DeRozan gets paid, and DeMar DeRozan is one of the most efficient players in the NBA. So it's crazy stuff. Charles Barkley said social media is the worst thing to ever happen to society. Do you agree?
Yeah, I really do.
It really is. It really is. Everyone on social media has an opinion, is an expert. I mean, I can't tell you how many doctors and lawyers I've met on Facebook. I mean, it's wild stuff. I thought it was a great quote. I don't know. It just came out of nowhere. Sorry about that.
Charles Barkley is great.
Yeah, Charles Barkley has some. He's a quote machine.
Yeah.
The Utah Jazz, and we'll get Dan Case on here soon, just so he can have his moment of fame. They're 23-5, best in the NBA. Their two leading scorers, okay, Donovan Mitchell averaging 24.5. Their second leading scorers, their sixth man. Can you believe that? So that talk about balance on a team. When your second leading scorer is the first guy coming off the bench, it's pretty impressive stuff. Mm-hmm. But they don't have any. Donovan Mitchell, I don't think he's in that superstar category yet. So the teams you can compare him to, the 04 Pistons, when they beat the Lakers, they had Tayshaun Prince and Rip Hamilton and Ben Wallace, and no superstar, just a bunch of grind and hardworking guys. The Grindhouse Grizzlies from a few years ago with Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph. And do you think a team with no superstars, generally speaking, and I know the Pistons were the exception to the rule, do you think a team with no superstars can win in the NBA? Miami almost did it last year, if you consider Jimmy Butler a superstar.
I would think yes. And the reason I think yes is because when you're built with superstars, they're the ones that are getting the ball. They're the ones that the plays are designed for. They're also the ones that a team strategizes to defend and say, we got to take these superstars away. That's why you're seeing more and more of them have to have two or three superstars on a team, so that if they take away the one superstar, there's at least another guy, and then maybe the third guy ends up being open. With a team that doesn't have a superstar, quote unquote, and everybody sort of contributes, that there streams to me that the system that they're running and the coaching that they're getting is what's propelling them to those next levels. And at that point, if you don't know who to guard, then, again, it's the system and it's the matchup creation and the open looks that you got to hit, versus knowing that we got to stop this superstar or tandem of superstars. So I think it is there. They always say you need to have that Kawhi Leonard to win sort of thing, like with Toronto. But I think there is exceptions to every rule.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes in the playoffs, it's a little bit of luck of the draw. And no, that's an excellent point. I think in the playoffs, when it's grindhouse and you need a bucket, you need your one guy to take the ball. I think that's where it becomes a bit more prevalent. But anyway, NBA will heat up. We'll talk more about the NBA in future shows. But we're gonna move on because we are kind of running out of time, eh?
8 o'clock, bud.
You know what? I didn't even get to the JJ Watt. We'll talk about him next week and some of his plays, because we had
he'll be landed somewhere.
Yeah,
but we'll see.
Yeah. I also had we'll talk about that next week. I had every team's cap situation. I'll hang on to that information for next week, because there's some teams in a real hot mess, and they're going to have to make some hard decisions with veteran players. So we'll see what happens. Brock, do we have the UC blooper of the week, vintage edition, that we can play for our
blooper of the week? So we got Kerwin Bell, an old Florida Gator, quarterback for the Toronto Argos, runs the ball in against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, runs over to a defender to spike the ball in his face, spikes it, Hits him right in the nuts.
Do you have that? Can we put? Oh!
That one bounced out. That hurt.
Toronto,
Look.
number 14.
And he got an ejectional conduct.
Yeah,
Oh,
of course. I mean, the best thing about that clip is Kerwin Bell, right? He's not like Doug Flutie by any means. He runs it in. I think it might have been his only running touchdown all year. Comes out. I don't know what he's thinking.
Man, he was trying to make a point. Somebody must have said something to him, and he's going to spike that ball right in the face. And
well, it's
Curtis
again
just, from the back. Said Pep's obsessed with that clip.
Oh, I think I watch it at least 10 times a year. It makes me feel so good. Anyways, it's a perfect lead up to what I call legend or not a legend. And
I
Brock,
have no intro for that. I have no another note. I need an NHL intro video. I need a Legends intro video.
not a legend. And I'm just going to pull up my list here. I'm going to name off today's team focus is going to be your Florida Gators. And here are the rules. Here are the rules.
Okay.
I'm simply going to, Brock's going to say if this person showed up on the campus of Florida, would he be given basically the keys to the campus or keys to the city as a legend in Florida? No matter his professional career aside, this is just Florida. Okay.
Okay.
So simple. You're just going to say yes or no, or legend or not a legend. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever you want. Or maybe, because a couple of these guys are still playing. All right. Here we go. Rex Grossman.
No, not legend.
Marquise Pouncey.
Legend.
Chris Collinsworth.
Legend. But a lot of the fans don't know, aren't as familiar with him. But I would say he's a legend, but that's more from the announcing standpoint. Legend, anyway.
Okay. Carlos Dunlap.
Legend.
He was that good in Florida?
He was the reason we lost to Alabama. And that reason was because he got suspended for being drunk, asleep at the wheel in a car, and didn't play in that game. Had he played in that game, there was no tackle that was going to stop him from getting pressure on, I can't remember if it, Alex McCarron. I'm pretty sure he was the quarterback, and Dunlop would have been in his face all day, and that would have changed the game. I'm 100% certain of it.
Interesting. Didn't they? They played together in Cincy too, I think, for a year or two. Interesting. Percy Harvin.
Legend.
Wilbur Marshall.
Yes, but I think he's just too old school for the ones right now.
Okay. Mike Pouncey.
Yeah, the Pouncey twins are legends.
Both? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Trent Brown.
No.
Dante Fowler.
No.
Okay. Jack Youngblood.
Yes, legend.
Legend. Jack Youngblood broke his leg and played in the Super Bowl on a broken leg. Unbelievable. Emmitt Smith.
Yeah, legend wherever he goes.
Fred Taylor.
Legend.
Danny
The
Werfel.
problem with Fred Taylor was his son was the running back for Florida. So he was the number one running back out of Florida, high school Florida. Number two was Henry. And Florida got the number one. Derrick Henry was the number two. And you see pictures of him, and Henry's like 4 feet taller than him and whatever. And obviously ends up being the way better back. So I wish we were number two, but Taylor was a good bloodline, if you will.
Danny Werfel.
Legend. He's got a statue. He's a legend.
Tim Tebow.
Okay, let's stop with the stupid questions.
Hey.
He is the legend.
Okay. All right.
Legendary player. He's top 5 college football players of all time.
Javon Curse.
Yeah, I would say legend.
Joe Hayden.
Legend.
This next one's awkward. Aaron Hernandez, if he was still alive.
Legend.
Vernon Hargraves.
Did when you have off-field things like that.
But his time in Florida, his performance on the field in Florida.
Legend. I saw him live. Legendary.
Vernon Hargraves III.
No.
Kyle Pitts. I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thing is, he's only had one real good year. But that year is arguably legendary, and it'll depend. It's to be determined, I think, for him right now. If he goes back to Gainesville right now, he's a legend for this window. But I think it's to be determined from a long-term perspective.
Interesting. And the last one, Kerwin Bell, Mr. Spike, myself in the crotch.
Let's be honest. Most people only know that he's a Florida Gator because of the crotch spike, and they're like, the Florida Gator guy did this. No,
He was All-American one year.
Yeah, whatever. No, he's not a legend.
He's a legend in this house. I'll tell you that right now.
A legend somewhere.
There you have it, folks. Legend or not a legend? Next week's edition.
Like it.
Yeah, right on.
Some of those are layups. You know they're legends.
Hey, they gotta be called out though. I mean, I'm not gonna ignore them.
I would.
All right.
I think that's it.
That is it.
Going out to your choice of song. Def Leppard, Rock of Ages. Make sure you guys, if you guys looking for UC gear, make sure you guys check out the sales at megacitypromotions.com. It's an email address. You can message Steve. He'll get you whatever you guys want. I'm going to put an order in for some more sweatshirts and stuff like that. Get some more UC gear going.
Let me know when you do that, B.
What?
Let me know when you do that.
Oh, 100%.
And before we close up shop, you like the dunk contest? Yes or no?
Nah, not anymore.
Nah, yeah, there.
It's over. There's just so many things they can do now, and it's just not even impressive. It's all gimmicky and whatever.
Yep.
I'm over that. I don't think the All-Star game is fun to watch whatsoever. So
boring.
Yeah, that's it. Anybody who got golf course membership hookups, please email me. I would love to get onto something like that. And make sure we shout out to Soldar Metals for my backdrop. And Pep's got one coming in soon, I think.
My boy John Shaw.
Yeah, man. All right. That's it. You guys can enjoy the rest of this song, which is Pep's #1 Def Leppard song.
Crank it.